Part 44. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 437. Chapter 429. Everyone is crazy. The Emperor is the most noble of the 95. He was pointed at the nose and scolded as a remnant of the previous dynasty, and his heart was filled with anger. As soon as he stretched out his hand, he pulled out the sword of the guard next to him and stepped forward to kill him himself. Commander Pang's face changed slightly. He was afraid that the Emperor was up to no good, so he immediately rushed forward with his men. General Mingwei did not want to rebel, but his family members were captured and he had no choice. He had the idea of success or failure and brought enough men to besiege Xianqing Temple. Those who followed him all know that he enjoyed endless glory and wealth, lost his body, and the 9 clans were destroyed. If you don't want to die, you have to fight hard. Those who follow the Emperor naturally want to live. In an instant, the two sides were fighting in darkness. Ling Chu and Qing Feng both looked bad. Suan Kiguan has always had a transcendent status, and no one has ever dared to offend him. The two of them never thought that anyone would dare to lead troops to besiege. If the Taoist temple is destroyed, how can they have the face to meet their master? The two senior brothers and sisters looked at each other and immediately took action. Ling Chu summoned the shovel and small hammer, but Qing Feng disappeared in a flash, but came back in the blink of an eye. Some of the imperial guards thought he was looking for weapons and didn't think much about it. Unexpectedly, Qing Feng came back, not holding any weapons in his hand, but instead carrying a furoshiki. The uninitiated might have thought that he was going to pack up his belongings and run for his life, but the corners of Ling Chu's eyes twitched. It seems that the third senior brother is really angry this time, and he even took out the treasure that the second senior brother left in the temple. Qing Feng doesn't care what other people think. He has a noble status and has been fearless of heaven and earth since he was a child. Now that I have grown up, I have always acted informally. He was not afraid of being scolded for his cruel tactics, so he jumped up to the wall with his baggage in hand. He reached out and took out a handful of poison, raised his hand and threw it towards the officers and soldiers in the distance. Soon someone covered their head and face and screamed. But Qing Feng didn't even blink. He threw out all the itching powder, bone-eroding powder, ruin-jin powder, living corpse pills, great compassion poison, laughter powder, and some unnamed poisons. Originally, both sides gritted their teeth and fought to the death. Qing Feng's ungrateful style of play quickly broke the serious atmosphere and the scene became very strange. Some people were infected with itching powder and their bodies became extremely itchy, so they couldn't even bother killing them. He threw away his sword and started scratching his body desperately. Those under house arrest have no choice but to wait to be chopped down. The one who was stained with corpse bone powder watched helplessly as his whole body festered and screamed in pain. There were also people who were slapping themselves with tears streaming down their faces. Some people were obviously injured and in terrible pain, but they looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. General Mingwei watched his well-trained subordinates become extremely confused in an instant, and he was so angry that he vomited blood. Even if he brought many people, some were lucky enough to avoid the poison. They were also killed to pieces by the elusive shovel and small hammer. In less than a quarter of an hour, the situation became one-sided. The Forbidden Army is happy. With Qing Feng and Princess as brothers and sisters, they feel like they have divine help. However, just when everyone thought that the fighting was going to end soon, another group of officers and soldiers came. Mingwei General Yuan Xing immediately cheered up, thinking that the second prince had sent him reinforcements. However, the leading general ignored him at all and just led his men to fight hard. Yuan Xing was angry and annoyed, and immediately realized that this was not the aid sent to him by the second prince at all, and it was not even the second prince's person. The emperor's face is as black as ink. If he is not from the second prince, then he is from the Minister of War. Let Su Cheng get out of here. The leading general pursed his lips and said nothing. He just glanced at the emperor quickly and continued to slash with his sword. Su Shangsha didn't come to Xianqing Temple at all. He was very excited when he thought that Su Cheng was helping the prince win the throne. Although killing the emperor was not a good name, as long as it was done, he didn't need to worry about the rest. The prince didn't want to be accused of killing his father to seize the throne, so he would naturally find a way to cover up the truth. As for him, when he stands in a high position, no one dares to say anything about him. What's more, even if he is criticized, he doesn't care. Ling Chu frowned as he looked at the people and horses that were still surrounding them. It seems that the crown prince and the second prince are really crazy in order to compete for the throne. Maybe it's not just them who are crazy, but also the queen and concubine Ancienne. The queen and concubine Ancienne who were far away in the palace were indeed crazy and crazy with jealousy. The emperor suddenly left Beijing, and the two of them inquired in every possible way, only to find out that Ning Chuchu was still alive. The reason why the emperor ignored state affairs and traveled thousands of miles to Xianqing Temple was just to see her. After receiving the news, the queen and concubine Ancienne were angry, resentful, and deeply uneasy. The emperor will definitely know the truth when he meets Ning Chuchu. Both of them knew that according to the emperor's temperament, they knew that they had jointly deceived Ning Chuchu back then, and they would definitely deal with them after returning to the capital. The queen was afraid that the emperor would depose her from the throne, and she was even more afraid that Ning Chuchu would persuade the emperor to depose all the princes and pass the throne to that Ning Chui in order to take revenge. How can the queen tolerate the loss of the glory and wealth that she has worked so hard to win? It was not only the queen who had the same fear, but also concubine Ancienne. After the emperor left Beijing, the queen and the concubine had their thoughts. There is a turmoil in Kyoto at the moment. Suen Kiguan's killing scene was even more intense. Although the imperial army around the emperor was very powerful, the general behind him led more than 30,000 troops, plus Yuan Xing and others, making it very difficult for Ning Chui to fight here. To make matters worse, a dozen monks and Taoists suddenly appeared around the Taoist temple. As soon as these people came, a dark wind suddenly rose and hundreds of ghosts came out. Qing Feng and Ling Chu looked solemn. Although they led the Taoist priests from Xianqing Temple to resist, the strength of the 10 Taoist monks should not be underestimated. Not only were hundreds of ghosts summoned, but the souls of dead officers and soldiers were also used by them to attack. King Feng's bag was soon empty, and a Taoist priest had to run to the second brother's residence and bring over all the poisons and talismans he had left behind. Ling Chu also had to continuously extract energy from the system. In the blink of an eye, Xianqing Temple, which was originally a pure place, flowed with blood and turned into a purgatory on earth. The imperial guards were all decorated, even the emperor was no exception. Ning Chui's worry sank when she saw the red light on Ling Chu's forehead reappeared. He wanted to get out and go forward, but he was surrounded by countless people and couldn't move. Ning Chui glanced at Ling Chu's eyes, which were gradually turning red, and shouted to Qing Feng, "Your Majesty, take the princess away." Qing Feng hurriedly turned her head and glanced at Ling Chu, her expression changed. Sullenly, he threw the last few talismans in his hand at the besieging ghosts, flew to Ling Chu's side, and reached out to pull her. "Xiaoxi, follow me." However, when he pulled him, he found that Ling Chu was not moving at all, and he reached out and pushed him into a pile with his backhand. With an expressionless face, he commanded the shovel to rush towards the surrounding ghosts. Seeing Ling Chu gradually losing consciousness, Qing Feng bit her teeth and was about to knock her out with a knife. However, as soon as he raised his hand, a rich and melodious voice came from far and near, "Qing Feng, stop." Thanks to book friends such as Edge of Happiness, AE, Rightward Arrow Unchangeable Love, Hualuo Xiao Xiao, and 16091321195932 for their monthly support. Thanks to Feng Kishan, 20230208431051, in the Galaxy, Chen, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, 201703181914308335, .v, squinting and smiling, red leaves fluttering. E, life is bright. 2023-021-8508. AC, Yunhua Four Seasons Mountain, Daoao. EB, Snow Lotus, no end of the world, flowers falling on the path, ice on eyelashes. CB, this moment, laugh with you, Joy 792, 854 519, dream #reality, 2023-011-8710. CE, Scarred, 854 614, Forget Me Not, Goat Song and the Story of Eyes, All Living Things, Happy Swallow. Ed, Drink More Hot Water, Absurd, Blue Ice Rain Love. Ed, Care, Falling Leaves No Autumn. Ad, Xiaomei, Green Lantern Night Tour. De, Wang Xiao Yan. BC, Yulian Yuman. BC, Remember to Forget, 20230712122732, China Fuse, /Lihupa Baby, Edge of Happiness. AE, Why We Grow Old, Happy Reading, 20230521742110, 641417, 20231008623025 and other book friends recommendation vote support. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. There are some new book friends today, and some book friends who haven't been around for a long time are still here. I'm happy. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 438. Chapter 430 The Return of the Master. Qing Feng paused and almost cried with joy. Hearing the familiar voice, a monk subconsciously turned his head, and then his pupils shrank. From afar, 3 Taoists were walking towards them. Their speed was like shrinking the ground to an inch. Could it be that Master Xianyi has returned? Isn't there news that he is far away in southern Xinjiang? How come you came back at such a critical moment? The monk subconsciously wanted to escape, but they were about to complete their mission. If I just give up, I really won't be willing to do it. At the moment of hesitation, golden light flashed in front of his eyes, and the 3 Taoists with fluttering clothes in the distance were already standing at the entrance of Xianqing Temple. Everyone, do you want to destroy our Xianqing Temple while I'm away? The old man in the lead looked like an immortal, his face was calm, and his voice was neither sad nor happy. However, the faces of the dozen or so Taoist monks all changed, and their hands and feet became weak. Some ghosts who knew how powerful they were scared away. But there are also many who stay in place and attack regardless of life and death. The emperor looked happy when he saw the old man. The real man is finally back. Genren Xuanyi nodded slightly and said, I have met the emperor. Then he scanned around the Xianqing temple and the ghosts around it, and quietly told the 2 disciples, there is no need to keep them here, just clean them up. Yes, master. The 2 disciples looked away from Ling Chu, bowed in response, and made quick gestures with their hands. One person dealt with the ghosts, and the other dealt with the dozen monks and Taoists. Master Xianyi ignored the 2 disciples behind him and walked towards Ling Chu's direction. Having lost consciousness, the ghost who didn't know how powerful he was rushed towards him ferociously, but before he could get close, he was bounced away by the golden light on his body. Even before he could utter a scream, he died in a panic. Seeing Master Xianyi, Qing Feng was a little worried and said, Master, if you don't come back, you won't see your disciples anymore. Master Xianyi just glanced at him briefly and then withdrew his gaze. He continued walking towards Ling Chu without stopping. Qing Feng twitched the corner of his mouth. It had been a long time since we last saw each other. Master and the old man still only had eyes for his little junior sister. In Master's eyes, he was as dispensable as the stone at the door of the Taoist temple. Ching Feng was slandering in his heart, but he didn't dare to say anything. He didn't take good care of his little junior sister, and he didn't know if the master would punish him. Ling Chu didn't look at the real person Xian Yi, his eyes were a little hollow, and he kept controlling the shovel and small hammer to kill the ghosts. Xiaosi Master Xian Yi followed her gaze and looked at the shovel and the hammer, with a flash of surprise in his eyes. But he didn't say anything, he just called out softly, raised his right hand and put his fingers together. As he read the sutra in his mouth, he quickly tapped Ling Chu's forehead with his 2 fingers. Ling Chu was unconscious at the moment and had no idea who the person in front of him was. She just instinctively raised her hand to push the person in front of her away. However, Master Xianyi touched his shoulder with his left hand and he was immediately unable to move. Half a quarter of an hour later, Master Xianyi took back his hand and called out in a kind voice, "Xiao Si." Ling Chu blinked, and the confusion in her eyes receded. When she saw the immortal old man in front of her, she blurted out, "Master." After the words came out of his mouth, Ling Chu was startled. It was the first time she had seen this person, but she knew it was Xianyi without anyone having to say anything. This is the memory left in her mind by the original owner. Seeing that she had regained her consciousness, Qing Feng relaxed her tight heartstrings and blurted out, "Xiaosi, you really scared me to death." Fortunately, the master is back. Ling Chu was a little confused. What had she done? Why did the 3rd senior brother look so scared? Qing Feng opened her mouth and was about to say that she had just become disowned and that gods would kill gods and Buddhas. Mr. Xuanyi glanced at him lightly, and his voice was full of warning, "Qing Feng." Qing Feng felt a chill in her heart and immediately swallowed back the words that came to her lips. He quickly put on a smile and quickly changed the subject. "Little sister, master, senior brother, and 2 senior brothers are all back." Being interrupted by him, Ling Chu came back to his senses. Only then did he remember the fight just now and quickly turned around to look. The dozen or so monks and Taoists who were besieging him all collapsed on the ground, looking dejected and shocked. As for those eerie ghosts, they have long since disappeared, and even the air has returned to its original quietness and peace. 2 Taoists with fluttering clothes were looking towards her, and they both smiled at her, "Xiao Si. 1st senior brother, 2nd senior brother." These 2 people are not what she imagined. The senior brother Gun is a bit rigid and serious. Among the senior brothers and sisters, he is the one who looks most like his master, and his magic skills are all inherited from his master. 2nd senior brother Nangu is tall and thin, and his body smells of medicine. Ling Chu hurriedly said hello and immediately turned his head to look to the other side. Only then did I realize that the fight had already ended. More than half of the besieging officers and soldiers were killed or injured. Those who were not dead were also paralyzed on the ground, unable to move. At first glance, it seemed that he was imprisoned by the eldest brother and the 2nd brother with magic. 2/3 of the imperial guards were dead, and the rest were seriously injured. The emperor was also hung on his body. Fortunately, Pang Gongling was fighting to death with others, and he was not injured. Ling Chu's eyes glanced over, and finally landed on the tall and straight body, but covered in blood. Puckering her lips, she stepped forward quickly. He took out the medicine and poured it on his wound, but it was washed away by the blood in the blink of an eye. Ling Chu's eyes turned red. Ning Chui I was looking down and saw that she seemed to be about to cry, and her heart tightened. "Don't worry, it just looks a little scary, but it's not serious." Ling Chu paused, pursed his lips, and raised his eyes. Her face was pale, she had obviously lost a lot of blood, yet she was reassured that she was fine. For some reason, she clearly didn't want to cry, but her emotions came quickly and urgently. Despite trying hard to hold it down, the tears still rolled down like broken beads. Seeing her crying, Ning Chui felt panicked and in pain. "Don't cry, I'm fine, I'm really fine." He wanted to raise his hand to wipe her tears, but found that his hand was full of blood. He was afraid that she would cry harder when she saw it, so he quickly pulled back. Yinsha and Wei Feng, who were also scarred, saw Ning Chui so helpless for the first time. This scene was really new. The two of them watched it intently, and even suddenly felt that the injuries on their bodies didn't seem that painful anymore. Ling Chu senior brother and second senior brother stood on one side and were looking at Ning Chui carefully. Seeing her suddenly burst into tears, the two of them frowned, and their eyes at Ning Chui quickly changed from appreciation to dissatisfaction. Xian Yi, a master of the immortal style, also set his sights on Ning Chui, but what he looked at was not only the appearance, but also the facial features, bones, momentum, fortune, etc. After looking at Ning Chui, he looked at Ling Chu carefully, raised his right hand slightly and tapped his fingers lightly. Gun and Nangu's actions are exactly the same as those of Xian Yi. If it were normal for so many people to look at him, Ning Chui would have noticed it long ago. But seeing Ling Chu crying now, he was confused and didn't know anything about it. The emperor did find out, but Master Xian Yi's face was calm, and he couldn't see any clues from his face. I could only glance at Ning Chui some hate iron. The master and a few brothers were watching. How can I drop the chain at the critical moment and even coax a girl? Afraid that Master Xian Yi would be dissatisfied with Ning Chui, the emperor coughed and stepped forward. Fortunately Master Xian Yi came back in time, otherwise I might have returned to the underworld. Genren Xuanyi slowly withdrew his gaze. Although he could see the emperor's thoughts, he did not reveal it. Your Majesty is blessed with great blessings from heaven. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 439. Chapter 431 The Crown Prince dies. If it were normal, the emperor would definitely be very happy when he heard Master Xian Yi's words. After all, it is very rare to get a word of criticism from Master Xian Yi. Thinking of the constant assassinations along the way and the officers and soldiers who had just surrounded him, the emperor couldn't be happy at all. He gave birth to two rebellious sons, and two rebellious sons wanted his life. Seeing that the emperor's face was ugly, Master Xian Yi took a look at his face and knew what he was thinking. Of course Master Xian Yi would not reveal the emperor's scars. The dragon's body is important. The emperor will treat the wounds first. I didn't want to say more, but after a pause, Master Xian Yi added one more sentence. The emperor has been away from the capital for a long time, so when he returns, we will set off tomorrow. The emperor's heart tightened. The real man had just come back, so he asked him to return to the capital. Could it be that something big happened in Beijing? Sure, what's wrong with calculating? Your Majesty, please be patient and don't be impatient, you will know later. Mr. Ling Chu is not a crybaby, and the tears he shed just now were just a sudden surge of emotion. But she soon held back and picked up the medicine bottle again to apply medicine to Ning Chui. Seeing that she didn't drop any more golden beans, Ning Chui breathed a sigh of relief and didn't dare to say anything else. He just silently let her apply the medicine to him. Just glance at the end of her reddish eyes from time to time. When he saw her crying just now, he was momentarily panicked. Seeing that she had calmed down her emotions, there was a slight pain in his heart. No matter what happened in the past, Ling Chu always behaved calmly, not at all like a little girl who just had hairpins. Since he met her, this was the first time he saw her shed tears. He knew that she was worried about her injury, but seeing her crying made him feel bad. Gun and Nangu watched Ling Chu apply the medicine to Ning Chui. Although they did not stop him, they both frowned. Master Xianyi glanced at the two of them and signaled Nangu to apply medicine to Ning Chui. Master, Nangu did not move, frowning and looking at Xianyi in confusion. Master should be the same as him. They all saw that the little junior sister Hongluan Xin was moving, but the master didn't stop it. Master Xianyi knew what he wanted to say, but he did not explain. Go ahead. Please also help take care of the injuries of those forbidden soldiers. After all, they have to the emperor back to the capital. Even though he was reluctant, Nangu finally took out a bottle of medicine and walked over. Zayasi, let me do it. Ling Chu turned around when he heard the sound and said with a smile, okay, thank you, second senior brother. He then turned to Ning Chui and said, my second senior brother was born in Yaoang Valley and has superb medical skills. His medicine for injuries is very good. It won't take long for you to recover. Nangu glanced at the junior sister helplessly, wanting to say that he didn't help her apply medicine, so she didn't need to thank her. But his lips moved, thinking of master's instructions just now, and finally he didn't speak. Ning Chui has a keen mind and realizes that Nangu seems to be a little dissatisfied with him. But she didn't know where his dissatisfaction came from. It was obviously the first time for the two of them to meet. Yin Sha on the side stepped forward silently. The Taoist must be tired after a long journey back. I'll just give you the medicine. Nangu didn't say anything. He handed the medicine bottle to Yin Sha and prepared to treat the wounds of the forbidden soldiers. He just took 2 steps and turned back. Little junior sister, I've prepared some medicine for you. I'll have someone deliver it to you later. You go back and rest first. Okay, thank you, brother. Ling Chu happened to be a little too tired to stand it any longer, so he agreed and turned back to the Taoist temple. As for Ning Chui's injuries, with the medicine given by her second senior brother, she was not so worried. With Nangu's medicine, the forbidden army quickly stopped bleeding. As for the officers and soldiers who came to besiege Xianqing Temple, their faces were ashen. General Mingwei looked even more desperate. The general he thought was reinforcements wiped his neck and committed suicide when he knew he couldn't escape. He knew that if he failed and was caught, the end would definitely not be much better. I originally wanted to commit suicide, but I hesitated for a moment and lost the opportunity. General Mingwei could only cry and repent in front of the emperor, telling him that his family members were arrested and he had no choice but to lead troops to besiege Suankigwan. He knew that he was bound to die, and he only asked the emperor to spare the lives of his family because he was forced to do so. The emperor didn't say anything. After Commander Pang interrogated him, he ordered people to deal with all the rebellious officers and soldiers. Since leaving the capital, he has been assassinated one after another. Although the emperor said nothing, he felt uncomfortable in his heart. Coupled with the fact that Master Xianyi asked him to return to the capital yesterday, the emperor had an uneasy sleep all night. The next day, the emperor woke up just after dawn. As soon as he got off the bed, Gong Gong and hurriedly brought a dusty imperial guard over. Your Majesty, an urgent report has been sent from Beijing. The emperor's eyes narrowed and he said coldly, send it up. The letter was sent by the emperor's confidant who stayed in Kyoto, and he ordered it to be sent over 800 miles as a rush. The letter was not long, and when the emperor read the 10 lines at a glance, his vision went dark and he fell forward. Eunuchan was startled, and rushed forward to help the man and put him on the bed. Here, please quickly ask Sun Yuanzheng to come over. After giving a panicked order, Eunuchan saw the letter falling from the emperor's hand and subconsciously stepped forward to pick it up. When his eyes fell on the words above, his expression suddenly changed. His legs went weak and he knelt down. Ning Chui, who was next door, heard Eunuchan's panicked voice and rushed over immediately, followed by Yuanzheng, who was hurriedly carrying a medicine box. The emperor fainted, and Unicorn was confused. When he saw Ning Chui coming in, he immediately handed over the letter in his hand. Ning Chui didn't answer, but when he lowered his head, the 4 words came into his eyes, and his eyes immediately froze. The prince passed away. Ning Chui pursed her lips and signaled Sun Yuan to come forward to diagnose and treat the emperor. Sun Yuan calmed down his panic and stepped forward. Just as he took out the pulse pillow, the emperor opened his eyes. The emperor did not let Sun Yuan Zheng take his pulse. He lowered his eyes and looked at the imperial army who sent the letter. Tell me everything that happened after I left the capital. You are not allowed to hide it. I obey the order. The imperial guard kowtowed first, then straightened up, licked his dry lips, and spoke in a hoarse voice. The emperor left Beijing and asked the prince to supervise the country. In the beginning, the prince went to court on time every day, worked conscientiously, and handled all state affairs in a decent manner. However, dealing with political affairs all day long and reviewing memorials are boring and tiring. The prince soon relaxed, and the people waiting around him advised him to pay more attention to his health and balance work with rest. The prince thought it was reasonable, but after relaxing, he felt that the palace was really boring. So someone advised him to go out of the palace to relax. Although the prince felt that it was not very good, he also thought that the opportunity was rare. It would be a pity if we didn't take advantage of the opportunity of the emperor's absence to go out of the palace. The people around him may have noticed what he was thinking, and after a few words of flattery, the prince was quickly moved. In order to avoid causing trouble, the prince did not make any publicity and only quietly left the palace with a few confidants. I spent most of the day wandering outside the palace, and somehow I ended up at Yuhangyuan. The prince was about to turn around and leave, but he overheard others talking about the warren from Yuhangyuan bidding for the first night today. Remembering that he had glimpsed the beauty of the warren, the prince changed his mind and entered Yuhangyuan. The prince only wanted to have with the warren quietly while the emperor was away in Beijing, but he never wanted to be a peony flower. Thanks to book friends such as Cloud Dance 73, Crystal at Diamond, Small Mirror, If There Is an Afterlife, I Want to Forget You, and other book friends for their monthly support. Thanks to Yan, 641,417, 0808292220201007, Why We Grow Old, Daoyo. EB, Crystal Bingzin, Feng Kishan, Xianbin, Haitang. CE, Yanking, Crystal at Diamond, Sankai. DB, Xianbin, Yunyun Zongshen. V, Xiao Xiao Yu Heart. AE, 1311192132222849, Warm Wind Drunk 915, Life is like a dream is like life, this moment, laugh with you, freedom is like the wine 459, fallen leaves no autumn. Add, where is the small mirror, silent blessings, housekeeping cleaner Lu 1376 771 7289, Chen and other book friends recommend and vote for support. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 440. Chapter 432, Patricide and Brother Killing. The prince died, on the belly of the courtesan. The warren of Yuhangyuan is a famous beauty in the capital, and her every frown and smile can enchant people. Almost all men who met her were fascinated by her. Even the prince is no exception. 2 years ago, the prince took advantage of the opportunity to leave the palace and secretly visited Yuhangyuan. At that time, when I saw the courtesan Xiang Xiang, I was so attracted to her that I wanted to marry her for a while. It's just that although Xiang Xiang is the warren of Yuhangyuan, she never accepts guests. Although the prince has a noble status, he is not easy to persecute. He is worried that if the news spreads, he will be displeased by the emperor. The prince did not expect that he would be so lucky this time out of the palace. He would encounter an warren bidding for his first night, and the emperor was not in Kyoto yet. Although he wanted to buy the Warren's first night, the prince didn't want to make a scene known to everyone. After entering Yuhangyuan, he did not bid in public. Just let the father-in-law around you quietly find the madam of Yuhangyuan, spend a lot of money to buy Xiangxiang's first night, and then send her to a private room. As soon as the prince saw Xiangxiang, he couldn't take his eyes away. But he could hold it in at first, but after 3 rounds of wine and 5 dishes, he still couldn't wait to drag the person to bed. The Warren opened the package successfully, and the prince was very satisfied. But he had been taught strictly since he was a child and knew not to indulge in sex. He originally wanted to return to the palace after the love affair was over. However, he wanted to leave, but Xiangxiang was unwilling to let him leave. Xiangxiang is an courtesan. She is naturally beautiful and has no shortage of ways to seduce people. She used all the tricks she had learned, and the prince simply couldn't resist her. Although there are many beauties around the prince, due to the strict control of the queen, the women around him are pretty, but almost all of them are dignified. There is no way I can resist Xiangxiang's many tricks, and I quickly fell into it. The people serving the prince were a little worried when they saw that he never came out. But when I heard the sound inside at the door, it was hard to disturb me. I can only wait silently. It was almost dawn when a scream suddenly came from the prince's room, which woke up the little guarding the door. Hurrying to open the door and go in, he found the prince lying naked on Xiangxiang's body. The young originally thought that the prince was exhausted and wanted to move him away. Unexpectedly, upon touching him, he discovered that the prince was no longer breathing. When he realized that the prince had died, or the Warren had died, the young was so frightened that he lost his mind on the spot. Other people who followed him out of the palace heard the noise and hurried over, their faces turning pale with fright. The prince died, and he died in such a disgraceful manner. The eunuchs wanted to hide the news. However, the Warren's scream was not small, and it had already attracted other girls, madams, and patrons from Yuhangyuan. It is rare for people to die in brothels, but it is not unheard of. The eunuchs originally wanted to drive out those who were watching the fun. Unexpectedly, someone recognized the prince's face, and in panic, called out the prince's name. A stone immediately stirred up 1,000 waves. The news that the prince died in a brothel spread across the capital at an alarming speed, and everyone knew about it. After hearing the news, the queen fainted immediately. When I woke up again, the prince's matter had already caused a big fuss, and his reputation had become extremely ugly. The queen was furious and ordered people to take the prince's body back to the palace while also ordering people to thoroughly investigate the cause of the prince's death. The prince's grandson died, and the Minister of War was equally furious. He used thunderous means to help the queen conduct a thorough investigation, and the results were soon obtained. The spearhead for the prince's death was pointed directly at the second prince. The second prince not only denied it, but even cynicized about the prince's death. The queen wanted to kill the second prince, but there were countless people protecting him and she couldn't move at all. So he rushed to concubine Xian's palace and wanted to kill her to avenge the prince. Unexpectedly, concubine Xian and her son were on guard. Not only did the queen fail to kill concubine Xian, but she took the phoenix seal away from her and was secretly imprisoned. When the Minister of War heard the news, he wanted to enter the palace to see the queen, but concubine Xian blocked her back because the queen was unwell. The imperial guard who delivered the letter quickly finished talking about the prince, licked his dry and peeling lips, and looked at the emperor hesitantly. Seeing that his face was green and black, although he was a little worried about the dragon body, but thinking of the turmoil in the capital, he gritted his teeth and followed closely. Before I left the capital, the second prince had already taken over the government, and concubine Xian took control of the harem. The prince passed away suddenly, and the second prince took over the government. Officials in the court asked to see the emperor. However, the second prince blocked him from going back on the grounds that the emperor was seriously ill. Some people discovered that the second prince not only controlled the court, but the imperial guards in the palace also had many unfamiliar faces. Even the officers and soldiers guarding the four gates of the capital, east, west, north, and south, were all changed. The prince passed away, and the emperor's people who stayed in the palace wanted to send a message to Xianqing Temple. However, the palace gate was controlled by the second prince's people, making it impossible to get out. When King Rui and King Dingyuan went to court, they secretly provided cover for the imperial army so that he could quietly come out of the palace. But not long after leaving the capital, he was hunted down. He would have died countless times if it weren't for the secret protection of King Dingyuan's men along the way. The emperor's face was cold and his throat was fishy and sweet. At this moment, he extremely regretted the favor he had shown to concubine Xian and the second prince in the past, which resulted in their mother and son's current ambitions. In order to compete for the throne, he did not hesitate to kill his father and brother. If he didn't go back, the second prince might announce that he was seriously ill and died. The emperor suppressed the sweetness in his throat and ordered in a cold voice, "Commander Pang, please go down and follow me back to the capital immediately." His eyes touched the tall Ning Chui beside him. The emperor wanted him to follow him back to the capital, but when he thought of Ning Chuchu, he couldn't help but hesitate. He came to Xianqing Temple with the intention of taking Ning Chuchu back to the palace, but his trip back to Beijing must be extremely dangerous. Ning Chuchu's body is not suitable for traveling quickly, let alone facing dangers. If Ning Chuchu is allowed to stay, once he leaves, the two of them don't know if there will be a chance to meet again. After much hesitation, the emperor finally made up his mind, "You stay with your mother. When I return to Beijing and send you a message, you can take your mother to Beijing." There is no family affection in the Tian family, and the emperor has no shortage of sons. The actions of the second prince have already touched the emperor's objections. He planned to rush back to the capital as quickly as possible to deal with the second prince and concubine Xian. After all dangers were eliminated, Ning Chui was asked to take his mother back to Beijing for treatment. Ning Chui frowned, and just when he was about to speak, Master Xianyi walked in with 4 disciples. The emperor thought that Master Xianyi knew that he was leaving the capital and brought his disciples to say goodbye to him. But he didn't expect Master Xianyi to give him a surprise as soon as he opened his mouth. Pandeo has not been back to the capital for many years, and he misses the customs of the capital very much. If the emperor does not mind, can you let Pandeo go back to the capital with you? Swanyi Genren is willing to return to the capital. The emperor wants it, so how can he not be willing to do so? Thanks to 202101301510022, 1502162035296889, Hangzhi Chuishang and other book friends for their monthly support. Thanks to Chen, Guan, DC, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Nora, 2020706130425328, Xiaomei, Yanking, Tianbauer, CMEA, Guan. DC, E, Silly Bayanai, Crystal Bingzin, Hongyi Piaopio. E, Exquisite and Clear Heart. AE, All Living Beings, Life is Bright. Fenkasheng, Forget Me Not, Pingguo Degree, .v, 13119213222849, Fog Shadow 566, Fallen Leaves No Autumn. Ad, CHLWCH, Daoyo. EB, Ixixi, 1402121840214228, Xianbin, Morning Glory Under the Scorching Sun, Schweer, waiting for recommendation votes from book friends. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 443. Halfway up the mountain. A group of tough bandits armed with long knives surrounded more than 30 people on horseback. The leading man in black glanced around, not seeing the killing Ning Chui, and immediately frowned. Could it be that he and his men were preparing to ambush them elsewhere? Although it was a pity that he could not be killed in one fell swoop. But it's okay if he's not here. I heard that his martial arts skills are higher than Commander Pang's. If he were here, it would be difficult for them to successfully complete the mission. Wait until he kills this group of people, then gather all the people to kill him. The man in black quickly made up his mind, and his eyes fell on the noble and majestic middle-aged man wearing a brocade robe. His eyes narrowed slightly, and he suddenly raised his knife and shouted, "Come on, kill them." Commander Pang sat on his horse, his right hand on the knife at his waist, and his left hand holding up a banknote. "Wait a minute, since you are bandits and all you want is money, why do you have to kill them all? We just borrowed the treasure land for a while, and we didn't mean any harm. This money should be used as travel expenses. I wonder if you could raise your hand and let us pass." Even though he knew there was little hope, Commander Pang still wanted to give it a try. Ling Chu didn't hold out much hope. Today is the 9th day since they left Xianqing Temple. Along the way, they have been chased 5 times. Although these people in front of me pretend to be similar, they are not gangsters at all. How could they be let go? Sure enough, the leading man in black sneered, "With such a small amount of money, you think you are sending it to beggars? As long as we kill you, all the money will be ours." As soon as these words came out, I knew that there was no way to do good. But in fact, this is the result of both sides knowing it well. The emperor simply opened the skylight and spoke openly, "If you are honest and don't speak secretly, have you thought carefully about it? Are you really going to commit the serious crime of treason?" Ling Chu's eyes swept across Ning Chui's majestic face, and he breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that the gangsters were not suspicious. But she looked sideways in her heart. She didn't expect that he could imitate every move of the emperor exactly. Even the sound can't be heard. If she hadn't put on this makeup, she would have almost thought that the person in front of her was the emperor. Ling Chu was stunned for a moment, but quickly recovered his thoughts. Seeing that the sky was getting darker again, he frowned. Although her makeup skills are pretty good, this ancient makeup is not waterproof. If it rains, this makeup will probably fade. I don't know if they can get out before it rains. As soon as the emperor finished speaking, some gangsters' eyes flickered and they hesitated. However, the leading man in black did not flinch at all, and even wanted to pretend to be confused. "What a serious crime of rebellion. We are gangsters. What we do is murder and swindle goods. We live a life with today and no tomorrow. Life and death have long been at stake. Ignore it. You can only blame your own bad luck for running into our hands. Besides, you have seen what we look like. Even if we are willing to let you go, you will definitely come back with people to kill you afterwards. Only a dead person would not tell secrets." The words of the man in black, although he was answering the emperor, were also secretly warning his companions. If the emperor and his entourage are let go, they will be the ones who die. Kill. The hesitation on the faces of the gangsters quickly turned to ferocity, and they rushed towards them with their knives raised. The emperor's words clearly indicate that they are not real gangsters. If they cannot kill them all, what awaits them is the risk of annihilating the 9 tribes. Since there is no way to do good, the only option is to fight to the death. These people worked hard for the sake of Chongzhou dynasty, but they were never reused. In this case, the dragon chair can only be replaced by someone who can bring them glory and wealth. For the sake of wealth and honor, these people risked their lives and risked being executed by 9 tribesmen, vowing to keep the lives of the emperor and his entourage on this mountain. Pang Tong secretly breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that no one suspected the emperor's identity. It can be seen that those gangsters came to kill them desperately, and their hearts were filled with fear. The emperor has 3 adult princes. Now that the prince has passed away, the second prince is plotting rebellion. There is still a third prince left. He injured his leg when he was a child. Although the imperial doctor tried his best to treat it, he still became a lame prince and it was impossible to inherit the throne. The other princes are still young, and the emperor may not pass the throne to them. Although the emperor has not yet allowed Ning Chui to recognize his ancestor and return to the clan, depending on the importance he attaches to Ning Chu, he will tell the world about Ning Chui's life experience sooner or later. Peng Xiao knew very well that although they were trying to lure the gangsters away so that Genren Xianyi could the emperor back to Beijing safely. But they must not let anything happen to Ning Chui. He took a deep breath, pointed his sword towards the sky, and shouted, "Kill!" Those who can become the imperial guards are not stupid people. Although they cannot understand the emperor's thoughts thoroughly, the current situation no longer requires them to think too much, and they know how to choose what is best for them. More than 30 imperial troops, after receiving the order from Commander Pang, immediately formed a formation, guarding Ning Chui in the middle, and fought and retreated. They had no intention of fighting, but the gangsters on the opposite side did not know that the emperor in front of them had a different identity. They were already killing him for the glory and wealth promised by the people above him. The cold wind howled and the sound of killing shook the sky. As more and more figures fell down, the mountain was filled with blood, and even the air was filled with a thick, suffocating smell of blood. I don't know how much time passed, but the sky became increasingly gloomy. Ling Chu clearly felt that the energy in her body was decreasing sharply, but looking at the few dozen forbidden troops left around her, she had to grit her teeth and summon the shovel again. Ling Chu was concentrating on commanding the shovel and small hammer when she suddenly felt a sudden heat between her eyebrows, as if something was about to move and want to break out from her eyebrows. I shook my head subconsciously, but the burning feeling disappeared again. She frowned. Could it be that her energy was overdrawn and she was hallucinating? Seeing the gangster on the right charging toward her ferociously, Ling Chu didn't want to think too much and waved his hand for the shovel to come forward. Her mind was focused on the gangster opposite, and she didn't notice a flash of red light on her forehead. The gangster did see it, but before he could recover from his surprise, he was killed by a big shovel. Perhaps he felt the violence on Ling Chu's body. Wherever the big shovel and small hammer passed, one after another fierce bandits fell down. Ning Chui waved the sword in his hand and wiped the neck of a gangster next to him. Took the opportunity to glance in the direction of Ling Chu, his eyes swept across her eyebrows, and his heart tightened. He was about to turn around and go to Ling Chu immediately, but the gangsters surrounded him tightly. Ning Chui's eyes were deep, her lips were pursed tightly, and the long sword in her hand was as powerful as breaking a bamboo, leaving after images in the air. The center of his eyebrows felt hot before, and Ling Chu thought it was an illusion due to overdraft of energy. But she gradually felt that something was wrong, and there was a faint cruel idea in her heart to kill everyone in the world. Just when she was about to bite the tip of her tongue to regain her faintly out of control consciousness, a gray figure suddenly emerged from the ground 3 feet to the right. Jumped up at a very fast speed, raised his palm and hit her hard. Careful. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 444. Chapter 434. The Emperor jumps off a cliff. A loud shout passed by his ears, and Ling Chu's empty eyes were shocked. She subconsciously wanted to look in the direction of Ning Chui. However, before she could turn her head, a strong murderous aura rushed towards her with a sound of breaking through the air. Ling Chu bit the tip of her tongue hard, and the pain brought her back to consciousness instantly. Seeing the man in grey coming to kill, she subconsciously stepped back. The palm failed, and the man in grey was stunned. Obviously, he didn't expect that she, a girl with no martial arts skills, could avoid his killing move. Although it was unexpected, the man in gray thought it was just a coincidence. Soon he came towards her again with the fierce palm wind. Ling Chu didn't panic and waved his hand to call back the shovel for defense. It's just that she doesn't understand martial arts, so her speed was slowed down in a hurry. The big palm of the man in gray hit her right shoulder hard. Severe pain was felt, and Ling Chu was knocked away. This palm, when she saw the man in gray approaching for the second time, she actually knew that she could not avoid it. She was prepared to get hurt. However, she didn't expect that she had avoided a crucial point. After being knocked away from the top of the mountain by the man in gray, she was surrounded by a cliff of 10,000 feet. Until her foot missed the mark, she realized that she was actually in the middle of a fight and was pushed to the edge of the cliff. Falling from a height of 10,000 feet should be fearful. However, Ling Chugzu knew that she was not destined to live a long life, or perhaps her soul did not belong to this time and space. Death was not as scary to her as she imagined. At this moment, Ling Chu was still calm. Even at the last moment, when she recalled the big shovel and small hammer, she also let them take the lives of many gangsters along the way. All this is a long story, but in fact it is just a matter of a flash of lightning. Ling Chu faced death calmly. However, Ning Chui, who had always remained calm even when the mountain collapsed in front of him, felt a suffocating panic for the first time in his life. The moment he saw the man in gray emerging from the ground, he tried desperately to rush towards Ling Chu. However, the gangsters did not know his identity, and they came towards him one after another like a tide. Want to keep him, the emperor, alive. Although Ning Chui has great martial arts skills, it is difficult for him to fight with 2 fists and 4 hands. Under heavy siege, he can't move even an inch. But the moment he saw Ling Chu being knocked away by the man in gray, a murderous aura suddenly burst out from him. Wherever the sword energy passed, blood splattered everywhere. Countless heads flew up, rolled to the ground. Ning Chui, with red eyes, soared into the sky like a cold-faced murderer, flew past the headless corpses, and threw himself towards the cliff. Seeing Ling Chu fall off the cliff, a trace of satisfaction flashed in the ferocious eyes of the man in gray. But this satisfaction disappeared immediately when he saw the man who was killing him like a Rakshasa. As soon as his face changed, he subconsciously wanted to escape. However, I soon realized that something was wrong. He was worried that the emperor was being protected by the imperial guards and had nowhere to attack. Unexpectedly, he delivered it to the door himself. This gift is heaven-shattering wealth. As long as he kills the emperor with his own hands, he will be a powerful minister who is inferior to one person and superior to 10,000 people. Thinking of the high-ranking official and generous salary he was about to receive, the man in gray was extremely excited and had long ignored the uneasiness in his heart. He turned around and charged towards the emperor fiercely. Ning Chui's handsome face was so cold that it could drip ink. A murderous look flashed through his eyes. The sword arrives first before the person arrives? The long sword in his hand was thrown like lightning. Passed through the chest of the man in gray. Hit him in the face. A heart-piercing pain hit him. The man in gray lowered his head, staring with frightened eyes. He clutched the sharp sword at his heart with both hands and swung it in his mouth several times. He wanted to say something, but before he could say anything, blood was already rushing out of his mouth. Failing in success, the man in gray showed strong unwillingness in his eyes. However, just as he was unwilling to rise, he saw the emperor passing by him. Jump off a cliff. Although the life force in his body was rapidly passing away, at this moment, the man in gray couldn't help but stayed for a while. Did the arrival of the god of death cause him to hallucinate, or was the emperor crazy? He actually saw the emperor jumping off a cliff. The man in gray blinked in disbelief, endured the pain, and turned around with difficulty. Wherever he looked, there was no figure of the emperor. Realizing that the emperor had really jumped off the cliff, the man in gray had a crazy laugh on his face. However, as soon as he smiled, he saw Commander Pang and the remaining imperial troops rushing towards the cliff while shouting crazily, "Sir, come back." The smile on the man in gray's face froze. What kind of grown-up? Isn't that the emperor? I was startled for a moment, and something flashed through my mind. The man in gray clothes was so frightened and angry that he couldn't take a breath and fell backwards. I quickly ran out of breath. The man in gray will die with his eyes closed. His widened eyes were full of resentment and unwillingness. Being slapped away by the man in gray, Ling Chu fell down the cliff on her back, and the strong gravity pulled her down. After falling a few feet, the shovel swooped around her. Ling Chu's body suddenly paused. However, after just one breath, it fell sharply again. At the last moment when the energy was exhausted, the shovel helped her block it, then turned into a piece of golden light and dissipated in the air. Having fallen off a cliff thousands of feet high, there is nowhere to stay and nothing to hold onto. Ling Chu had to summon the little hammer again. However, it only blocked her plummeting body. The system's alarm sounded in my mind. Beep, beep, beep. Warn the host that the energy is exhausted and the system is about to shut down. Without energy, the system's alarm sound is not as sharp as before. After 3 weak sirens, Ling Chu's mind fell silent. The dim golden light quickly dissipated. Ling Chu's body was no longer supported. The cold wind howled past her ears, and she could see the dark sky that was getting farther and farther away from her. Ling Chu smiled bitterly in his heart. She is not afraid of death, but this time, she is afraid that she will fall into a pile of mud. Watching the news of her death, King Dingyuan and his concubine will probably be very sad. But even if she dies, and there is Han Lin and Han Song, time will eventually heal their pain. She regretted that she could not serve Master Xianyi for her original owner until her old age. Fortunately, she still has 3 senior brothers, so the master doesn't have to worry about having no one to take care of her. Thousands of thoughts flashed through her mind, and what finally settled in her mind was a handsome face with sharp edges. Ling Chu sighed in his heart. She could not repay what she owed Master Ning after all. Fortunately, few of the bandits were killed with shovels and small hammers. For the remaining ones, with the martial arts of him and Commander Pang, I believe it would not be difficult to escape. I hope they can return to Beijing smoothly as soon as possible. The cold wind was still roaring, and something dripped on my face. Ling Chu looked at the dark sky blankly. It turned out to be raining. Suddenly, Ling Chu's eyes widened when he saw a figure leaping down towards her from above. Her heart seemed to be pulled by a pair of big hands, and the pain made her wake up instantly. "Don't!" A shout finally broke out from the stuffy chest. Ning Chui pursed her lips tightly and said nothing, her gaze always fixed on that bloodless little face. Taking a deep breath, using his internal energy like crazy, he fell down by 1,000 caddies, and then down again. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 445. Dear friends, after a few days, we meet again in the new year. Did you miss me? No. Snored. It's not allowed. Akimbo, oh, mathematical intersection symbol. Mathematical intersection symbol, oh haha. I stopped reading for a few days and went back to my hometown after 3 years to spend a few days with my parents. Thank you all for your understanding and tolerance, I love you. Next, I will try my best to finish this article. The following is the list of rewards and votes received in the past few days. Thanks to Hengja Blower for the reward of 100 starting coins and 2020816100149522 for the reward of 100 starting coins. Thanks to Flowers. Mo Yan, Why We Grow Old, Tang Shuang, Hengja Chui Shang, 150701143219890, Fei Wenli, 20190927211554974. The language of K-pop and other books are supported by monthly passes. Thank you for Why You Grow Old, Pros. BA 0808292220201007, Lazy Lin Lang, Woohoo Dash, Yan Qing, This Moment, Laugh With You, Chen, Feng Kishan, 20170616194023620, Wooing 566, CMEA, Crystal Bingzin, China Rich Ze, Lalun Zixi, 13119213222849, Why We Grow Old, All Living Things, CHLWCH, Happy Baby, Crystal at Diamond, Life is Like a Dream, Dreams Are Like Life, V, Remember to Forget, The Story of the Goat Song and Eyes, Happy Baby, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, I6C, Guan. DC, Xianbin, Morning Glory Under the Scorching Sun, Daoyo. EB, Fallen Leaves No Autumn. Ad, Chen, GJW53, Xianbin, Ice and Snow Flying. Ad, Red Leaves Fluttering. E, All Living Beings, Official. DC, China Fuse, Care, Why We Grow Old, CHLWCH, V, Daoyo. EB, 20231008623025, Ixixi, Xiaomei, Chen, This Moment, Laugh With You, Xianbin, China Fuse, Red Leaves Fluttering. E, Pros. BA.V Thin Time, Platycodon Flower, Official. DC, CHLWCH, Life is Like a Dream, Dream is Like Life, Chen. Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Care, Ixixi, Why We Grow Old, Silver Star, Xianbin, 2021004124334689, V, Scarred, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, East of Eden, Freedom Like the Wine 459, Chen, CHLWCH, The Wind of the Blue Planet, China Fuse, Guan. DC, IC, Why We Grow Old, Yan Qing, Chen, V, China Fuse, Red Leaves Fluttering. E, Shabai Yan AI, Why We Grow Old, 2023-082-8227. AC, VE Phi, Pros. BA, Xianbin, 2023060110025730, Daoyo. EB, CHLWCH, 2023-042-2918. De, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Ixixi, Chen, Xianbin, V, Goats The Story of Songs and Eyes, China Fuse, Pros. BA, Why We Grow Old, CHLWCH, Chen, Daoyo. EB, Life is Like a Dream, Dreams Are Like Life, Colorful Life, V, Happy Life, Chen, Life is Bright. Why We Grow Old, Daoyo. EB, 202305191459169330, Xianbin, Colorful Life, Ixixi, Pros. BA, 20231008623025, 2024-020-4102. De, Xianbin, Official. DC, V, Pros. BA, This Moment, Accompany You Laugh, 2020816100149522, Daoyo. EB, Why You Grow Old, Ixixi, Xianbin, V, Guan. DC, Why You Grow Old, Fallen Leaves No Autumn. Ad, China Fuse, Morning Glory Under the Scorching Sun, Knife Scarred, Ixixi, Pros. BA, Daoyo. EB, V, Xianbin, Pros. BA, My Life Seems to Be Like That, 20231019161372, official. DC, Scarred, Silent Blessings, 202212010052452118, supported by the recommendation votes of book friends such as The Language of K-pop, 0808292220201007, Feng Kishan, and Red Leaves Fluttering. Thanks to Hungzio and Xiaoxiang for supporting book friends. There are also comments and messages urging updates. I have read them all carefully. Thank you. I hope that in the new year, the year of the dragon, I can receive your support as always. Finally, I wish all book friends a happy new year and all the best. In 2024, you will have abundant financial resources, good harvests in love and career, and may you be filled with happiness and joy from now on. Love you guys. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 446. Ling Chu looked at the handsome face getting closer and closer to her in disbelief. Suspected to be dreaming. But the next moment, she was embraced by a pair of slender and powerful arms. At this moment, there was nothing else in her mind except that tense handsome face. Ling Chu raised his head and looked deeply into those dark and bright eyes. Aware of her gaze, Ning Chui tightened his arms and opened his thin lips lightly. Don't be afraid, close your eyes. Ling Chu pursed her lips. She had 1,000 words to say, but she just glanced at him. With his left hand, he quickly pulled out a dagger from his body, reversed it, and stabbed it between his eyebrows. She moved too fast, and Ning Chui was holding her, releasing the internal force of the heavy weight pendant, while distractedly scanning his eyes quickly along the cliff, trying to find if there were any vines or branches that could be grasped. By the time he noticed her movement and quickly looked away, the dagger in Ling Chu's hand had already moved away from his forehead. Ning Chui's heart suddenly stopped beating again. Just seeing the blood dripping from her eyebrows, she frowned. Ling Chu had no time to explain and stuffed the dagger back into his arms. Bite the of your right hand and point it immediately to the center of your eyebrows. A dazzling golden light burst out from between her eyebrows. Ling Chu secretly bit the tip of his tongue to hold back the dizziness in his mind. Immediately after the hands quickly kneaded, and as the divine mantra was recited from the mouth, a whirlwind suddenly rolled up in the air, wrapping their bodies. Ning Chui noticed that their falling speed had slowed down. Knowing that the strong wind summoned by her mysterious magic had slowed down their descent, Ning Chui hurriedly shifted her gaze to the edge of the cliff again. It's a pity that the direction they fell was still some distance from the edge of the cliff, and they couldn't reach the rocks on the cliff even if they stretched out their hands. Ling Chu also noticed it, and with his last breath, the magic formula in his hand changed rapidly. The strong wind wrapped around their bodies and quickly sent them to the edge of the cliff. This cliff is steep and high, and the cliff walls are bare. There were no vines, no branches, no place for them to stand. Ning Chui took out the dagger as fast as lightning, used his inner strength, and inserted it into the stone on the cliff. The falling speed of the two men finally stopped. However, there was nowhere to put strength under his feet. Ning Chui held Ling Chu in one hand and relied on a dagger to support the two people's physical strength. It was not an easy task. Veins bulged on his forehead, and beads of sweat soon appeared. Ling Chu knew she was not out of danger yet, but she forced herself to use the blood from her eyebrows to cast the spell. The stinging pain in her mind made her unable to hold on any longer. As soon as the strong air dispersed, the strong wind surrounding them quickly dissipated. The weight of the two people was no longer supported, and the force of their fall carried the dagger all the way down the cliff and across the stone. The daggers and stones brought out sparks one after another. Even though Ning Chui's dagger was as hard as iron and was extremely hard, it broke in half during the stroke. The bodies of the two fell rapidly again. Ling Chu's face turned pale, and he secretly prayed in his heart, hoping that a big tree could catch them like in the TV series. But she didn't know how deep the cliff was. She glanced at the towering trees below and saw that they were still a long way away. The cold wind hurt his face, and Ling Chu felt that his limbs were all cold. The system has run out of energy and has shut down. Her strength had been greatly exhausted, and she was now so weak that she couldn't even move a finger. It seems that this time, they are really doomed. It doesn't matter if she dies. But at this moment, she really wanted to ask what was in her heart. Ning Chui saw her face turning pale and thought she was scared, so she whispered, "Close your eyes and you won't be scared anymore." Ling Chu wanted to say that she wasn't afraid, but before she could say anything, Ning Chui suddenly hugged her and turned her around. "Follow the speed at which they fall." Ning Chui suddenly groaned. Ling Chu's heart tightened. I don't know if God heard her prayer just now, but they actually fell into a big tree. She was fine after falling from such a height, but Ning Chui's back hit a tree trunk as thick as an arm. Ling Chu's heart was high, but they did not hit the ground from the tree. I don't know what species that towering tree is, but it is extremely resilient. They hit the tree trunk, bending it downwards in a large arc, but did not break it. Rather, it is like a fully drawn string on a bow. Release your hand and the bowstring will bounce back. Ning Chui and Ling Chu are like the arrows that were shot away from the bow. Throw it far into the sky. Falled off a cliff, was bounced off, and finally fell down again. Ling Chu was a little dizzy, but maybe because she had been protected by Ning Chui in her arms, she didn't panic too much. It seems like a century has passed, but it also seems like only a few breaths have passed. With a splash, water splashed everywhere. 2 people fell into the water. They fell from such a high cliff, but they didn't die. This can be considered a blessing among misfortunes. But Ling Chu had no time to be happy, the water was already above his head. Falling from high places, they inevitably sink to the bottom of the water. Ling Chu knew that they should try their best to swim upstream, but she had overdrawn her energy and was extremely weak at the moment, unable to swim at all. The suffocation caused by drowning made her chest feel tight and painful, and it became increasingly difficult to breathe. Seeing them sinking deeper and deeper, Ling Chu felt anxious. Although she had no strength, even if Ning Chui was injured, it would not be difficult to get out of trouble as long as she was not a drag. But he kept holding her tightly and wouldn't let go. If this continues, both of them will drown. Ling Chu didn't want to drag him down, so he held back his strength and tried to break away from his hand. But Ning Chui's hands were like iron pliers, and she couldn't break free at all. Unable to speak underwater, Ling Chu could only use his hands to signal Ning Chui to let her go. Ning Chui was unmoved. He took a deep look at her, pulled her into his arms, lowered his head and pressed his thin lips to her red lips. Ling Chu was startled by his sudden movement and subconsciously wanted to speak. But as soon as he opened his mouth, a burst of air suddenly came in. Ling Chu was stunned. It turned out that Ning Chui was helping her to breathe. Seeing her looking at him blankly, Ning Chui felt soft in her heart. The beautiful woman is in her arms, hugging each other and kissing. Had it not been for the wrong occasion, he would have even wanted to hold her in his arms forever. Fortunately, his reason was still there. After breathing out his breath, Ning Chui quickly left Ling Chu's red lips. Enduring the pain on his body, he led her upstream. When Ling Chu finally surfaced, he couldn't wait to take a deep breath. The feeling of drowning is really terrible. She thought she was finally out of danger, but just after she took a few breaths, a huge roar suddenly came. Ling Chu was startled. Before she could see what was happening, a strong current rushed towards her. Ning Chui quickly grabbed her with quick eyes and hands, and said urgently, "Hold on." As soon as Ling Chu grabbed his clothes, the 2 of them were washed away by the water in the blink of an eye. While feeling dizzy, Ling Chu accidentally discovered that they had fallen into a large pool. And upstream of the pool, there is a large waterfall. The raging water roared down close to the cliff, cascading thousands of miles. Thanks to the Hengja blower for the reward of 500 starting coins. Thanks for the monthly vote support of 2019092721155494. Thanks to Feng, Xianbin, Why We Grow Old, Chen, Crystal at Diamond, Why We Grow Old, Remember to Forget, CMEA, and Hengja blower for tipping. 500 starting coin 2019092721155494 monthly pass. Thanks to Feng, Xianbin, Why We Grow Old, Chen, Crystal at Diamond, Why We Grow Old, Remember to Forget, and CMEA for their recommendation votes. Thanks to the book friends who support Hengziu. Thanks to the book friends who support Hengziu Tianxiang. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 447. Chapter 436 3 Lives and 3 Lives. Wild Countryside. Mr. N looked worriedly back from the distant hillside and advised in a low voice, "Your Majesty, I don't know how long it will take for the real person to make this. The pheasant is already roasted, how about, you use some to eat first?" The Emperor was silent, his eyes kept falling on a few figures on the hillside in the distance. Just when Yunakan couldn't help but want to persuade him again, the Emperor said softly, "I'm not hungry, just wait a little longer." Yunakan moved his lips but said nothing more. "But I couldn't help but feel sad in my heart. The Emperor has not had a good day since he left the capital. If I'm not on the road, I'm encountering various situations." Xianqing finally arrived and saw Ning Chuchu. Although he was smiling on his face, he was worried about her condition in his heart. When he received the news that the prince had passed away, he fainted. After waking up, he learned that the second prince had conspired to rebel. Although nothing could be seen on his face, he knew that the emperor was not feeling well in his heart. The two sons, who had high hopes, did not hesitate to kill each other in order to compete for the throne, and even wanted to take away the life of their father. The emperor's inner pain is unknown to others, but as a personal attendant, Yunakan knows it very well. He has served the emperor for decades. Except for what happened with Ning Chuchu, he has not seen the emperor so sad for a long time. This time back to Beijing, the emperor couldn't eat well or sleep well, and he seemed to have lost a lot of weight. Fortunately, Mr. Ning is still there. Thinking of Ning Chui, Mr. N couldn't help but worry. The prince passed away, the second prince wanted to seek power and usurp the throne, and the emperor wanted to rush back to Kyoto. But Ning Chuchu was seriously ill and could not accompany him. The emperor originally wanted Ning Chui to stay with her and wait until he returned to the capital to deal with the second prince's affairs before letting the mother and son return to the capital. But I didn't expect Master Xianyi to have other plans. For the safety of the emperor, Master Xianyi asked the emperor and those around him to dress up as ordinary businessmen who came to the capital to do business. On the surface, Ning Chui dressed up as the emperor and was escorted back to the capital by Commander Peng and others, with the purpose of luring away those with evil intentions. The emperor originally didn't want Ning Chui to be involved in danger, but he didn't expect that after being silent for a while, he nodded in agreement. In order to ensure that the emperor and Ning Chui would not have any worries, Master Xianyi asked Miss Ling's second senior brother to take Ning Chuchu away. Sun Yuanzhang couldn't cure Ning Chuchu's illness, but Nang Gu had a way. He is the son of the mysterious doctor with ghost hands who is rumored to be a mysterious dragon. Not only is he highly skilled in medicine, the Medicine King Valley in his home, which is only rumored, is home to many rare and good medicines. After learning that Ning Chuchu could be helped to extend her life, the emperor immediately agreed to let Nang Gu take her to Yaoang Valley for treatment. The emperor is not worried about Ning Chuchu now, but he is worried about Ning Chui's safety. Their journey to Beijing went smoothly without a single assassination or accident. The emperor knew that it must be Ning Chui and the others who lured away those who wanted to pursue him. Last night, Master Xianyi observed the sky at night and calculated that they would encounter a serious disaster. Immediately used Ning Chui's name and birth date to try to resolve the danger for him. In order to help Ning Chui escape from danger smoothly, even Master Xianyi's eldest disciple and Qingfeng helped Master Xianyi do this. Although the emperor was anxious to return to Beijing, he was not at ease when he learned that Ning Chui was in danger, so he stayed behind. It's just that Master Xianyi and his two disciples started doing this in the middle of the night, and it has been several hours now. The emperor was worried. Fortunately, it didn't take long before he saw Master Xianyi, who was sitting cross-legged on the hillside in the distance, slowly standing up. The two disciples beside him also stood up, and the three of them were talking. It seems that the approach was successful. It's a pity that the emperor was a little far away and couldn't hear what they were saying. The emperor guessed right, Master Xianyi's spell was indeed successful. Just Qingfeng looked at Xianyi with a tangled expression. Master is really powerful. Ning Chui and the junior sister are both out of danger, but the junior sister. Although Qingfeng didn't finish speaking, Master Xianyi could tell at a glance what he was struggling with. But he didn't explain too much, he just said quietly, although Xiaosi cannot live 100 years, his life will be safe from now on. Genren Xuanyi left these words behind, said no more, and walked down the hillside. Ji Yuan still frowned when he saw Qingfeng, raised his hand and patted his shoulder. Don't worry, Master will not harm Xiao Si. He must have his reasons for doing so. Of course, Qingfeng knew that what the senior brother said was reasonable. Not only would the master not harm the little junior sister, but in order for her to survive for a long time, the master would even spend 10 years cultivating to help her change her life. What Qingfeng was worried about was not Ling Chu's lifespan, but her marriage. They all figured out that her red star had moved, but the red line between her and Ning Chui was originally very shallow and not strong, and could be broken at any time. However, the master strengthened and strengthened the thread. From his point of view, the junior sister and Ning Chui will probably be firmly tied together for the next 3 lives. Ning Chui is outstanding in all aspects and is indeed worthy of being a junior sister. Qingfeng frowned just thinking about his life experience. No one knows better than him that no one in the royal family is a fuel-efficient lamp. The reason why he chose to stay away from Kyoto and traveled all the way to Xianqing to worship Xianyi as his master was because he had a great interest in mysticism, but it was also because he was tired of the days of intrigue and intrigue. If Xiao Si were with Ning Chui, he would probably face more troubles than he did before. What's more, now that the prince is dead and the second prince wants to usurp the throne, Ning Chui is the target of the storm. Ji Yuan didn't plan to say much at first, but seeing Qingfeng's expression, he had no choice but to mention a few words. My junior sister has a special destiny, and we can't protect her all the time. Not only does Mr. Ning match her zodiac sign, but he also has purple energy, so most ghosts and ghosts don't dare to get close to him. If the little junior sister can get his protection, she won't have to be wary of those ghosts following her all the time in the future. You are a member of the Taoist sect, not one of those ignorant ordinary people. You should know that although Master helped their marriage, if they have no intention of each other, no matter how much Master does, it will not help. Qingfeng naturally understood this, but when he thought about Ning Chui's life experience, he still couldn't help but feel worried. Ji Yuan smiled and said, Xiaosan, I know you are worried about my junior sister, but you used to run around a lot and didn't stay in the Taoist temple for many days. I'm afraid you don't know my junior sister very well. She doesn't have the temperament to be rounded or flattened by others. After a pause, Ji Yuan continued, Master has always been unwilling to go to Kyoto. The emperor has repeatedly invited him, but he remains unmoved. Do you know why he went out of his way this time and took the initiative to go to Kyoto with the emperor? King Feng's forehead throbbed with veins. Originally, he really didn't understand why the master wanted to go to the capital with the emperor at such a sensitive time. After hearing what the senior brother said, there was something else he didn't understand. Of course it's for my junior sister. Qing Feng suddenly felt sour. In the master's heart, they were really just grass, and the junior sister was the treasure. Master really wants to be a national teacher. Ji Yuan glanced at him, shook his head and walked down slowly. Master never thought of becoming a national preceptor. Thanks to Heng Jichui Shang for supporting the monthly ticket. Thanks to 0221201005245118, Free Walking Flower 350, Pros. BA, Official. DC, Scar Red, Morning Glory Under the Scorching Sun, .v, 20230308131120473, My Life Seems to Be Like That, Eden of the East, recommended by CHLWCH Vote Support. I just discovered that these book friends were omitted from the list yesterday. I duplicated the first half of the list. I would like to apologize to everyone. Thank you for your support. Thanks to Freedom Like the Wine 459, 1402121840214228, Chi Liuhe. DB, 1311192132222849, Chen, Forget Me Not, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Yanking, Xianbin, .v, Falling Leaves Knowing Autumn. Add, Goat Song and the Story of Eyes, Goat the Story of Songs and Eyes, All Living Beings, The Sound of Wind, Colorful Life, CMEA, Eden of the East, Fi, Daoyo. EB, Happy Baby, Red Leaves Floating. E, China Fuse, Prose. BA, 2020706130425328, Free as the Wine 459, Life is Like a Dream, Dreams Are Like Life, 15021620352969, Wu Nana, Ixixi, 2017002151705026 and other book friends recommended votes to support. Thanks to the book friends supported by Hungziu. Yesterday, I was hit by a child riding a bicycle while walking on the road. I thought it was not a serious problem at the time, but half a day later I found it was swollen and painful. I hope it will get better tomorrow and I can resume double updates. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 448. Chapter 437, 8 Mr. Ning. Qing Feng frowned. He thought that the master came to Beijing this time to become a national advisor, so that he could better protect his little junior sister. Unexpectedly, he guessed wrong. But according to the importance the master attaches to his little junior sister, it really surprises him that he is not the national master. Ji Yuan seemed to know what he was thinking. Master, even if he is not a national teacher, he can still protect the little junior sister. Also, have you forgotten that there are 3 of us? Ji Yuan didn't stop, glanced at Qing Feng, and said softly, what's more, what others have is not as good as what you have. Instead of relying on the strong for protection, it is better to become the strong yourself. Qing Feng stared at Ji Yuan in surprise. Senior brother, what does this mean? Could it be what he thought, let the junior sister be the national preceptor? Although he once told his junior sister that she should be a national preceptor, it was mostly a joke. Looking at the look on senior brother's face, he turned out to be serious. Senior brother is a rigid person and always puts master's wishes first. Let the junior sister become the national master. This is probably the master's plan. Although Qing Feng knew that his master and senior brother had always disliked the restraint of the imperial court, their decision still surprised him. But think about it, the senior brother is right. Instead of relying on the protection of the strong, it is better to become the strong one yourself. Even though they are willing to protect their little junior sister, to be disrespectful, the master will grow old one day. It is impossible for the three of them to live forever, so they are always with the little junior sister to protect her. But if the junior sister really becomes a national preceptor, who in the world would dare to bully her? Not to mention those people with different ideas in the royal family who dare not, even the emperor has to think highly of it. The more Qing Feng thought about it, the more excited he became. However, when several people on the cliff saw Ning Chui jump off the cliff, they were so frightened that their livers and gallbladders split. Wei Feng's eyes were about to burst and he almost couldn't help but jump down. Yin Sha quickly grabbed his back collar with quick eyes and hands. Calm down. If you jump like this, you will die in vain. There is no use for you. Your Excellency is so blessed that he will not die. What we should do is to quickly find a way to find him. Yin Sha looked calm, but in fact he was already confused. But before seeing the body, I still held a trace of luck in my heart and didn't want to believe that Ning Chui died like this. Wei Feng was awakened by his words. He put his hands on his hands and gritted his teeth and got up from the ground. Yes, Your Excellency is so blessed that he will not die. We have to go down and find him. As Wei Feng spoke, he looked around for a way down the mountain. When he accidentally saw the man in grey lying on the ground, he suddenly became furious. He rushed forward quickly, pulled out the sword from his chest, and slashed at the corpse. If this man hadn't knocked Miss Ling off the cliff, Ning Chui wouldn't have jumped down to save her. Even if he had been killed by Ning Chui, Wei Feng would still cut him into pieces. Yin Sha did not stop Wei Feng. He just glanced at him and looked away, continuing to look for a way down the mountain. Pang Tong didn't think Ning Chui and Ling Chu were still alive after jumping from such a high cliff. But the two of them had unusual identities, and they couldn't just leave without caring. No matter what, you will see people when you are alive, and you will see corpses when you die. Pang Tong had no intention of understanding Wei Feng's behavior, and hurriedly led the remaining imperial troops down the cliff with Yin Sha. Ling Chu didn't know what happened after he was knocked off the cliff. But even if he knew about it, he probably wouldn't care about it. Because she felt like she was going crazy at this moment. After she and Ning Chui were washed away by the water flowing down the waterfall, the water flow was too fast and they had to be carried downstream involuntarily. I don't know how long I have been floating in the water. Ling Chu had no strength and was in a daze. She only knew that if Ning Chui hadn't let go, she would have been swept away by the current. It was winter, and if he fell into the water, he should have been shivering from the cold, but Ling Chu gradually realized that something was wrong with him. Not only is she not cold, and it was getting hotter and hotter, extremely hot from the inside out, and her heart seemed to be eagerly thirsting for something, feeling Ning Chui's strong arms around her, hot breath spraying on her neck, she suddenly felt like she was on an iceberg and in the fierce flames. It was extremely painful. Ling Chu didn't know what was wrong with him. I just feel like my mind is blank. The thirst in my heart is getting stronger and stronger. Unconsciously, she raised her head. What catches the eye is Ning Chui's tightly pursed thin lips, high nose, and resolute and handsome face. Ling Chu felt in a daze that he had not noticed it before, but now he realized that Mr. Ning was so good looking. She swallowed subconsciously, and an idea suddenly came into her mind. Master Ning is so good looking, I really want to eat him. This frightening thought made Ling Chu shiver. What is she thinking? Ling Chu felt that he was crazy. Otherwise, her brain was filled with water. Otherwise, how could she have such frivolous thoughts? It is not easy to carry a person with you in fast currents for a long time. But Ning Chui never thought of giving up. He was holding her in one hand and looking around, trying to find a place with gentle water flow and then find a way to get ashore. Perhaps Ling Chu's gaze was too intense, and he noticed that she seemed to be trembling. Ning Chui looked away, thinking that she was shivering from the cold after being soaked in the water for a long time. He tightened his arms and said softly, "If you bear with me a little longer, I will take you up." After Neng Chui finished speaking, he was about to turn around and look for a place to go ashore again. But Ling Chu didn't know if he was bewitched by the crazy idea just now. He stared at his thin lips for a while, and unexpectedly, he quickly stretched out his arms and wrapped his arms around his neck. In one breath, he lowered his head and pressed his red lips on it. Ning Chui was thinking about how to get ashore, but he was startled by her actions without warning. Forgetting to maintain his balance for a moment, he was about to sink to the bottom of the water. He hurriedly swung his legs and struggled to float up. Ning Chui didn't know why Ling Chu suddenly kissed him, but he knew he couldn't continue. After floating up, he immediately tilted his head back, trying to get away from the soft lips that he coveted. However, the moment Ling Chu kissed those thin lips, there was immediately a crazy and clamoring impulse in his heart, trying to pull her into the abyss of desire. Ling Chu had no idea what he was doing. She only knew that she desperately wanted something to quench the thirst in her heart. And that thing was Ning Chui's thin lips. Ning Chui wanted to raise her head to distance the two of them, but Ling Chu was not willing to end the kiss that made her feel so comfortable. Not only did she hold his neck tightly, she also deepened the intensity of the kiss. Even it quickly felt like this wasn't enough. As if consciously, her legs quickly wrapped around Ning Chui's waist. Subconsciously, I began to twist and rub. Ning Chui didn't expect her movements to be so violent, and she made a loud noise in her head. The calmness that had always remained unflappable when the mountain collapsed suddenly collapsed in an instant. A thirst suddenly arose in his heart, making him want to rub the beauty in his arms into his bones and blood. Thanks to CMEA for the reward of 100 book coins. Thank you Chen, 1402121840214228, 0808292220201007, Life is like a dream, dreams are like life, 641,417, Xianbin, Silent Blessing, Prose. BA, Remember to Forget, Fallen Leaves No Autumn. Add, The Story of the Goat Song and Eyes, All Living Things, 20231008623025. Why We Grow Old, CHLWCH, Eastward Journey to the West Remembers the Tiger, Lalang Zixi, 202305301154159407129776, China Fuse, Forget Me Not, Daoyo. EB, Feng Kishan, CMEA, Chen, Happy Life, Ixixi, etc. Supported by book friend recommendation votes. Thanks to the book friends who support Hengxiu. Thanks to the book friends who support Hengxiu Tianxiang.